this is going to be a bit of a refresher for what InDesign is. And again, what's important to remember is that this is all new to some people. Some of you used InDesign before, some haven't. So again, what our role is to kind of make sure that everybody is at least aware what InDesign does, how you open InDesign, what you can do with InDesign, how you begin using InDesign. It's going to take time to learn it. You're not going to learn it instantly. If it's new, everything takes time for us to learn. So the first thing is, don't panic. If this is all completely new, then that's fine. It's going to take time to pick things up. And the best way that you pick things up is just by practice and trying things out. So that's kind of what we're going to be looking at. So InDesign is part of the Adobe Creative Cloud suite. That's what it's called. You've all got access to this for use at home. You've all been sent a link that you can click on, and you can access what's called the Adobe Creative Cloud suite for free. It appears, so on my screen here, I think you can just kind of see at the top, you can see where my cursor's moving at the minute. So this strange kind of little knotty symbol here, if I click on that, it opens up. So once you get access to it at home on whatever device you're using, you install it, and then it opens up, and you can see this lists all the different programs, all the different applications that Adobe own, that Adobe provide you as a creative person for producing creative work. There's about 20 at least different applications, and the thing to remember is that you'll only ever use a fraction of them. I don't think there's anybody that regularly uses more than kind of 5 or 6 different applications at any time. Depending on what you do, depending on where your career goes, some people are moving into animation, then you're using kind of the more animation applications, animation software. What we're looking at in this context, and what we're going to learn over these next kind of couple of years, is the software that allows you to create exciting and vibrant work for print, for advertising, packaging, for that kind of work. We touch on animation, and we certainly kind of cover After Effects, which is a software that does that. But for now, we're focusing more on what we call the print work. So this work of creating nice visual graphics for showing in various areas. So some of these names you'll have heard of. So Photoshop, I would imagine everybody's heard of Photoshop. So Photoshop is a key piece of software you are going to be using. Illustrator as well is a key piece. Acrobat, whenever you open PDFs, you might see it pops. So open if you're opening something that's a PDF, it'll open in Acrobat. That's Adobe's kind of bespoke application for opening PDFs. And the one we're going to look at now is InDesign. So that's here. And InDesign, each has their own little icon, each has their own color, so you get to recognize them visually as well. And again, what's nice about Creative Cloud is it keeps you up to date. So again, this monitors all of the software that you got. So you can see on my screen at the minute, there's certain applications where there's an update available because Adobe have produced a more up-to-date version. This will probably, because the settings on this computer are to be installed automatically, normally at night when nobody's working on it. So I guarantee by tomorrow, if I looked at this, all that say update available will probably say up to date. It just means that the computer, and that's what it'll do with yours at home as well. Once you've installed Creative Cloud at home and you've got a Wi-Fi connection, it will automatically manage the software that you have. Okay. And you can choose what you want to install. So again, you haven't got to install every single of these items, these applications. You can choose just to install on your computer at home. I'm just going to have Photoshop. I'm just going to have Illustrator. I'm just going to have InDesign. Here at work, everything automatically installs itself because there's room to do that. So that's basically the starting point. That's when we talk about Creative Cloud, as we will do, that's what we mean. It's this suite or this collection of different Adobe applications that you use, of which Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign are just some of them. So today we're looking at InDesign, and this new brief is about InDesign. Okay. So when you've opened it up, it will appear as a little icon at the bottom there. It doesn't quite show up on this screen here, but at the bottom you can see, this is on a Mac anyway, on PCs obviously when you click on the little start window you get a list of all the applications that you've got open. The little icon is there, so you know that you've got Adobe InDesign installed and you can use it. Yeah, there'll be just be different versions. So again, there's a later version, but they'll have different numbers, won't they?
171 on there.
Yeah.
And 8 there.
Yeah. So one of them will be just a more updated version. Sometimes Adobe has more than one version, depending on what computer you got, but it is installed on this computer, so you don't have to worry about installing it here. But at home, you click install. First time you get it, you download it. None of them will be installed, and you click install, and it installs it on the computer. And it works out, looking at your system software, looking at how new your computer is, which version it will install automatically, so it knows it will work. Okay. So, but here they're already pre-installed, so that's all right. Right. So the next thing to talk about in this is before we've even got on to looking at designing things. InDesign demands that you be organized, demands that you kind of keep your work in places where you know it's going to be. If you don't, if you're a little bit kind of slapdash with it, if you kind of just leave stuff lying around everywhere, it'll soon cause a bit of a problem. So what I do whenever I start a new job is make a folder. So again, we all know how this is again. So this is all doing it through a Mac on a PC as well. It's slightly different commands, but it's the same process. So clicking on the desktop, file, new folder, there it is, makes a folder. For the purposes of this little demonstration, I'm going to create a design based on trees. So I'm not going to pick a designer. I'm going to imagine my task is to design a piece of design in InDesign based on trees. So I'm going to call this folder trees. So now that's where I'm going to keep all my work related to what I'm going to do. So the next thing I'm going to do is InDesign it's page layout software. So basically what you do in InDesign, you put pictures and words and bring them together to create these page layouts that we're doing in this particular project. So because of that, we need the content, we need the pictures, and we need the words to bring in. So again, just before I start opening InDesign, I'm just going to get a couple of pictures together. So if I was doing a project on trees and I need some images, then obviously in Google, just going to type in trees make sure I'm on images. And then the next thing to remember on images is if you click on the tools option there, and then that gives you another kind of little menu underneath. Click on size and make sure you're choosing large. That means that what Google is showing you when you click on large is the images that are of the largest size it can find. So they're not all going to be enormous, but they're not going to be tiny either. So again, because you want the best quality images you can, you want them to be, so when we say large, we're talking about the file size, we're talking about the resolution, we're talking about the quality of these images. We want them to be as good as they can be. If they're not, and you end up choosing a tiny little picture that you want to kind of make to a full-size page, it's going to start to distort and pixelate and look rough and look rubbish. So we don't want that to happen. We want these to be really good quality images. So this is what Google's offering me, all these things. So I kind of like the look of this tree here. So again, that looks quite interesting. So just going to click and drag. Again, most of you know this, I think, onto the desktop. And there it's given me that image of the tree there. And I'm actually going to call that, I'm going to rename it now. So you click on the label it's got underneath until it goes black text with a light blue. That means you can edit the name. And I'll call that tree 1. And I'm going to put that in my tree folder. And it's gone. Let's have another picture. Let's have this one here. So again, drag it off to the desktop, let it drop, and then click on the name. You might have to sometimes click on it twice till it goes black text with the light blue background, and then you can type in, I'm going to call that one tree 2, and put it in my folder. So that now has got me a folder, and in the folder's called trees, and in my folder I've got 2 pictures I've just got off Google, tree 1 and tree 2. And I know they're large images because I asked Google to show me these large images. Okay, so that's where we're up to so far. Now I'm going to start to open InDesign and see what I can do with those. So for the purpose of this task, I've given you two InDesign files, the cover and the double page spread, all ready for you. So you don't need to measure the magazine and draw your own up. I've already done all that. So that can be found on Moodle, on your Moodle page, and it's in the module called Introduction to Graphic Communication, which happens to be right at the bottom of your Moodle page. You click on it there, and then we scroll down again, and we get to Briefs and Session Material. That's where, as the name suggests, that's where the brief is, and that's where all the other material is. We click on that.
Sorry, excuse me.
Yep.
I didn't get how you enter that site because
So this is Moodle. So when you log on to Moodle, it looks like that. Yeah.
no, from where you the images.
I'll put them in my folder on the desktop. So my folder's just sitting here on the desktop. So my folder's got nothing to do with Moodle. I've just made the folder, and then I've dragged them off from Google onto the desktop, and then dragged them into the folder. So this is just my little folder sat here called Trees, and in that I've got two pictures. So I've got that done first, so that I know that's there, and then when I open up InDesign, I'll then know where my pictures are. Like I say, it's all about this. If you know where everything is, it'll help in the long run. Because again, as I'll show you in a couple of minutes, when you start using images in InDesign, if InDesign doesn't know where these images are, it throws a bit of a wobbly. Things start to not work as they should. If you keep organized and you know where your folder is, and you know what's in your folder, and you're always using from that folder, everything will work really well. So it's quite nice in a little kind of a lesson in discipline and organization, which isn't a bad thing. So again, so like I say, Moodle, so we scroll down to Introduction to Graphic Communication, click on that. Go down to Briefs and Session Material, and this brief is called Type and Grids. So there are 3 briefs you're doing in this module, but we haven't looked at branding or conversations yet. There's only Type and Grids that's got any information, and that's all the information that I've put in now. And the things we want to look at, the things I'm going to look at now, are the templates. So they're called templates. So that means they're the actual documents I made in InDesign for you to put your work into. So you can see we've got front cover template and spread template. So front cover template, we've got 4 items in this particular folder. We've got an iMagazine logo bitmap, an iMagazine logo JPEG, an iMagazine strapline bitmap, and an iMagazine template front cover. And you can see that this, at the end of this little name here, it says .idml. InDesign files, when you save any file, it always has a little suffix at the end of it, those little letters that we have at the end. So Photoshop files can be .jpg if it's a JPEG, or they can be .psd. PDFs, a .pdf at the end. InDesign files, when you save them, are normally .ind. This I've saved as a slightly different version, an IDML. What that is, that's a more flexible InDesign file. So if I were to save this, if I created an InDesign document for you, saved it as an InDesign document, and left it there for you to use, and you didn't have the same version of InDesign that I had, or you had an older version, it wouldn't open. You'd try and open it and it would say, can't be done. Because I've saved this as an IDML file, that means that it is more flexible. It can be opened by whatever version of InDesign you've got. Now, chances are you'll have the most up-to-date version anyway, because you'll be using Creative Cloud Link. But just in case you happen to have an older version than mine, this still allows you to open these templates. So again, you don't really need to know any of that, but that's why if you look at it and you say, what does that say IDML? That's the reason. Okay. So again, what I'm going to do here is download this from Moodle. So you click on it, and it will go to the download section, and then I'm going to drag that onto the desktop as well. So that is my double page spread template. I'm also going to download, my front cover template. I'm also going to download this iMagazine logo bitmap file, which looks like that. I'll put that that there, and the iMagazine strapline, just like that. Because those are the two things, as you'll see when we open it up, that I've already put on the template. I've put the logo on the template for you, and again, you need to download those as well. So the three things that you need, you don't need the JPEG one. So the three things you need are the actual IDML front cover template itself, and the iBitmap logo.bmp, and the istrapline.bmp. So again, I've downloaded all those, they're here, and I'm going to put those into this folder. Okay, so now in my trees folder, I've got my two pictures of my trees, and I've got my InDesign file, and I've got the two logos that the InDesign file is. So you see the way I'm putting everything in this folder. I'm keeping everything together. I'm not just leaving it on the desktop in case, because I might lose it then. So everything I'm ever going to use is going in this folder. The other thing I need to download is the double page spread. So that's here. So spread template, click on that. And this is the only thing in the spread template folder is this iMagazine template spread IDML file. There's no other logos. Obviously, there's no logos on the spread. So you just need to download this one thing for that. Click on that. And then you put it onto the desktop. There it is. And again, I'm putting that in my tree folder. So now in my main folder, I've got the iMagazine logo, the iMagazine strapline, the iMagazine template front cover, the iMagazine template spread, that's the double page spreads, and my two tree pictures, all in my folder ready to use. Okay. And all of this is just part of this background preparation. So again, hopefully if we go through this process and you know where everything is at all times, any problems that arise will be kind of reduced because of that. You won't have to struggle to find things and where you put them. So again, if you treat things like this and you make sure you know where everything is, there shouldn't be any issues. So now, what I'm going to do next, I can now move Moodle out of the way. So I'm going to open up now. I'm just going to start actually by opening up the spread. So I'll leave the front cover for now. So open up my spread, double click on, so this is in my folder. So the spread template I downloaded, double clicking on it, and you can see that it opens up in InDesign, and that's how it looks. So that is effectively the spread. So that what you see there is the basis for producing something like this as a double page spread. That's the bare naked version, if you like, with absolutely nothing on it other than the size and the grid lines. It's waiting for you to put that information on. So there's a left page. So this is called a double page spread. As we said last week, it's called double page because there's two pages. There's a left-hand page. This is our left-hand page. And there's a right-hand page. This is our right-hand page. And the purple line down the middle represents the join between the two pages, the middle of the magazine. The two pages meet. I've got these blue guides here. As you can see, these are already on there for you. So when you open up your version of this on Moodle, you'll see exactly this. So again, you haven't got to measure them yourself. You haven't got to draw them yourself. They're already there for you. So this is what we call a 4-column grid. Because in effect, on this page here, we've got these rectangles, the columns. This is where you might have your text or you might have your pictures. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 on each page. And then there's 4 on the right-hand page as well. So we call that a 4-column grid. Obviously, if we had 6 columns, it would be a 6-column grid. Exactly. The lines at the edge, these guidelines around the edge, kind of form clearly. This is your top line, and then this is the left, and this is the right. So you wouldn't normally have any text, any words, any writing outside of these lines near the edge, because there's a danger it might get cut off. Or if it's too close to the middle of the magazine, when you're reading the magazine, if you've got words going too close to the middle, you might not be able to read them. they'll be lost when the magazine's put together. So think of this as a kind of safe area. So as long as you keep all of your content within these outer blue lines, everything's going to be safely on the page. If this was going to be produced, if your designs were going to be produced as a real magazine, and when magazines are produced, they go to the printing press and they're chopped off and they're sliced and they're glued, none of your work would be lost in that process because you're keeping it all within the safe areas. Okay. So that's our double page spread, and that's what we're now going to start to add our elements to that we've saved. So first thing to do, I'm going to bring a picture. I'm going to bring one of my tree pictures into this. And again, we touched on this a little bit last week with Mo, but I'll just go through it again. So this down the side are all many different tools, as you can see, all represented by different icons. Again, don't worry at the minute, you don't need to know them all. You just pick up the one or two or the three that you use the most at first. And then you might learn what another one does. And then you might learn what another one does. So again, sometimes that can be quite daunting when you're looking at new kind of software. There'll be all these new icons down the side and you'll go, I'm never going to remember all them. And the truth is you don't. You'll start to use, like I say, 4 or 5 of them at most, and you'll get to know what they do. And then you might learn another one and you'll get to know what that does. So it's this slow process of learning by using things. So when we want to make a picture box, what we're going to do is choose this little rectangle here that's got a cross in it. You can see that one that I've just highlighted there. Click on that, and then on the page now, you can see my cursor changes from an arrow when it's, so I'm not touching anything, all I'm doing is resting it. So it's an arrow when it's over the icon. When we move it onto the white of the page, it becomes a cross because it's ready to do what it's going to do. And I'm going to draw a box. So I click and hold, just drag it across. And obviously I can choose just by it. So all I'm doing now, I'm still holding the mouse, moving it around. I can choose whatever size box I want. I could have it going over both pages if I wanted to. But I'm going to choose for now just to have one that's about half a page deep. So I'll leave that there roughly for now. And then what I'm going to do, I want that because I've put that there, but you can see it's not quite perfect to the lines, and I want it to be perfect to the lines. So one of the main tools you'll use is this one right at the top. That's why it's at the top. This is our selection tool. So this is this white arrow. The selection tool, think of it as a finger. So what it does, it allows you to grip stuff and move it around. So on the selection tool now, I've clicked on that. I'm clicking on this, and now I can click on this corner here, and I can actually move this box around. I'm going to move it so that it joins nicely with the grid. And I'm going to just do this side, check that's nicely with the grid. You'll feel, again, some of you already kind of worked on this. It's what we call snap. So again, as you get close to a grid, you can feel it actually kind of click into place. So you know it's actually perfectly there. And then the bottom one, I'm just going to have it about there for now. That'll do. So now I know that this picture box I've done fits perfectly with these lines, and I'm happy with that position where it's going to go. But now I need something in it because it's just an empty box. So what I'm going to put in it is one of my tree pictures. Now to do this, there's 2 ways of doing this. I'll show you both ways. Neither's right, neither's wrong. Again, you'll find this with software as well. There's more than one way of doing things, and it's whichever you become more familiar or more used to doing is the best one. Like I say, it doesn't matter which one you use. So the way that Mo showed us on Thursday, I'll show you that way first if you remember. This is my open folder. So my folder's just here on the desktop. I've opened it, so there it is. That shows us what's in it. Here's my 2 tree pictures, tree 1 and tree 2. So I'm going to put tree 1 in this box now. So in InDesign, I've drawn my picture box ready. I'm now going to go over to my folder. I've clicked on tree 1, and I'm just going to drag it now. You see, following it till I get over the picture box and let it go. And you can see it's dropped it. It's dropped my picture, tree 1, into that picture box. I'm doing that. The other way of doing that, so what I'll do first, I'll undo that. Gone. The other way of getting that picture into that picture box is you can go up here to this top menu at the top, to File, down to Place, and this allows you to choose if you want to do it this way. So if you know you've got an image somewhere on your computer in a folder, but you haven't got that folder open, this means that so what I'm doing now, I'm going to tell it what picture to put in there. And so on my desktop, there's my folder. Click on that. It shows me all the things in my folder. I want it to be tree 1. It shows me a little picture of tree 1. I'm happy with that. I click on open, and it does exactly the same. It puts it in that picture box. So you can either drag it from the folder in the picture box, or you can go File, Place. Obviously, the dragging is the easier one. If you've got that there, I would. Yeah, so you mean if you started and you haven't quite got all your pictures?
Maybe you've already started gathering it like this.
Yeah.
You've already saved some files, but
yeah.
You find out, maybe that I get something like tree that is including something. Can I go back to get something?
Yeah, you can go back and get. You can go back and get from this. Well, this if you've already done this, you can always edit this because remember that all this is just a picture on a page. So there's nothing absolutely fixed. You can always kind of bring more pictures in, delete pictures. So don't worry, just because I've drawn this, if I wanted to, I can get rid of that. And, yeah. So it's entirely up to you. So everything's completely editable. Yeah. So don't worry. So there's never a point where you've gone so far along it's fixed forever like that.
Yeah, but since you've gotten to this stage, can you still save anything and put it Google and get something and
you mean straight from Google into?
Yeah.
You could do, but then you won't have that as it's always better to do the process of getting it into a folder first, because you know you've got that there. That's a better way of working. Because there might be a time InDesign might want to know where that picture is, and if you haven't got a hard copy of it, you won't be able to tell it where. And I'll show you kind of how that can happen. So this is always a better way of working, making a copy of all the stuff you've got first. So this is our image. Now you can see that's not quite working at the minute because I want this image to fill my blue picture box and it's too small. So what do I need to do? I need to make it bigger. But I don't want to make my picture box bigger because I don't want my picture box to start going over to the page. I just want to make the picture of the tree bigger within that box. So again, this is where we can work on this, and probably the best way of doing this is, and what I'm going to show you first is this next arrow. So this second arrow down. So remember our top arrow is our arrow that moves things around. So we can click on this and it can move it anywhere on the page. Our second arrow deals with the content of the box, what's inside the boxes. So now I'm on the second arrow down. When I click on this, what it does, you can see it moves it around, but can you see the way some of it's going kind of pale? Because I'm moving the picture around and you can see the edge of the picture box because that's where it stays kind of stronger colors. So you can see the way I'm moving this picture within that picture box. You can see that. So it goes pale. It's completely out of the picture box now. Now it's back in. Now it's out. Now it's in. So what I'm doing, I'm moving the picture within that picture box. And I'll go back on the top arrow and then it shows me where that picture box is, the blue lines. So what I'm going to do is make this tree. So again, I'm going on second arrow, click on that. I'm going to make this bigger. And the way I'm going to do that is just by bringing in at the top a line of these details here. So this is called our control panel at the top. So I did that through Window. Window allows you to control all the things that you see on your screen. If there's a tick, it means that it's open at the minute. So again, I haven't got a great deal of things open. Just got a few. So this one is control. So Window, control, and control, as you'd imagine, gives you all the details. Some of which you don't need along the top about what's going on. It does tell us that the size of this picture is 100%. So this moment, this picture here is 100%. Okay, so to make it bigger, we can make that percentage bigger. To make it smaller, we can make the percentage smaller. Obviously, we want to make it bigger. So instead of it being 100%, I'm going to type in there 130. And click on that. You can see that it's actually got a bit bigger now. But it's still just about the right size, I think, there. That'll do. So I've now made my picture 130%, but what's important is the picture box hasn't got any bigger. So my picture box is still where it is. And click on the second arrow, you can see now. So that's now my picture. So you see how this is the picture moving within the picture box. And you can see that the picture is actually bigger than the picture box because it's got the edge around it that you don't see. So it fits nicely. So that's what you want. You want your picture to fit nicely in your picture box. What I can do actually is just show you where the picture box is at all times. So again, if I do that again, if I move it around, you can see. Go a little bit. So there's the picture box, that blue line, darker blue line. My picture moves within that. So again, you can see where it is. Okay, so I'm happy with that about there. Go back onto my top arrow there. So that now is a picture of a tree in a picture box halfway down the first page. So that's what I've done with that. Now, if I didn't like it there, again, using this top tool, selection tool, I can click on this. I might want to put it here. Or I might want to put it up there. Or I might actually want to have it going across the middle of the page because I'm going to do something else on it. So I could move it like that. It's entirely up to you where you want to move this now. The other thing you can do, if you think, actually, no, I'd like it quite bigger, or I want to make it smaller. So that's now in place where we want to move it. If I wanted to make it bigger, the whole thing bigger, not just the image within the box, but make the picture box itself bigger, then I can go on this tool here, which is it's a little kind of arrow next to a square. It's called the free transform tool. And what we do with that is once you've clicked on that, we can click. See the way it gives it the corners and the middle points give these little white squares. Those are little areas that we can pull to make it bigger. So I can click on one of those, and as I pull it, it'll make it bigger. Now, what's it doing that I don't want it to do? It's stretching, isn't it? So I don't want it to do that. It's like it's on a rubber sheet. It's making it bigger, but I don't want to stretch my picture. I want my picture to stay the same proportion. So what I'm going to do, go bigger, is you hold down the Shift key. So whenever you hold down the Shift key and do it, see what happens now. See the way it's getting bigger, but the whole thing is getting bigger. So it's not stretching, it's staying the same proportion no matter how big or how small I take it. The tree isn't stretched. It always stays the same proportion because I'm holding down the Shift key at the minute. So till I get, I think I'm going to have it about, I'm going to actually have it going across about here, I think. Then when you're happy with it, you let go. Then you go back on your top tool, your selection tool, and you can bring it in and move it. So now we've got it nice and big, and it runs across like that there. So I'm happy with that now. That looks nice and big. So now I think I'm going to bring another picture in. So it's the same process. I'm going to bring my other tree picture in. This time I'm going to have a little picture of a tree just at the top here. So again, go on the little box with the cross in. Draw my box here. Put it about there, like that. And then go back on my top arrow tool. That allows me to change the box shape so it fits nicely. All lines up to the guides. And again, I'm going to put a picture in this, so I'll go back to my folder. Here's my tree 2 picture, and that's going to go in here. There it is. Now this time, this picture is too big for the box. All it's showing me is a tiny little section of the tree, and I want to see the whole tree. So I need to make it smaller. So what I need to do now, if it'll let me, this is where, let's see, let me do this. No, let me do that. So what I'm going to do now is show you another feature. So because this is so much bigger, I'll show you how big this is. So this is the tree 2 picture I've dropped in this box. If I, again, go on my second arrow down, the content arrow, and click on this, when I click on this, it will show me how big the whole picture is. So I can only see a little bit of it in the picture box. Think of the picture box as a little window that shows you what it wants to see through the window. The actual picture itself is this big. So my picture's massive, isn't it, when you compare it to the page? My picture is bigger than the page itself. So what I'm moving around in the background here is my picture, and I need to make it much, much, much smaller if it's going to fit in that picture box. So when I let go of this now, all we see is what's in this picture box. If I click on it again and move it around to here and let go, all we see is what's in the picture box. But I want it to be smaller because I want to see the whole tree. So we've got some little icons up here on our top row that do that. One of them is a little white square, and it's got 2 arrows that go out towards the edge. The other is a little white square, and it's got 2 arrows coming in. So what that one does is the first one here is you see it says fit content to frame. So what that'll do, that looks at how big your picture is, it looks at how big your picture box is, and it automatically makes it fit. So just by clicking on that one there, it does that. So now you can see what it's done. It's taken my picture that was massive before and it's shrunk it down. Now, what's gone a little bit wrong with that though? It's done that for me, but what isn't quite right? What's it done to the picture to make it fit in the picture box? It's the size, but in what way? Does that tree look a little bit squished? Does it look a bit squashed? Because what it's done, obviously, it doesn't know what it's doing. All it's doing is following what we're asking it to do. It's made the picture fit the box, but in so doing, it's made the width of it less than the height of it. So if we were to look at this now, we can see that these two, again, this is our, you'll get to know what all of these different numbers mean, but these are our percentages of the size, and they should be the same. If they're the same, it means the picture's in proportion. They're not. So what I'm going to have to do now is make these the same number. So I'm going to make them both, see that's 6.8 and that's 11. So what I'm going to do is make them both, I'm going to make them both 10. So you can type over them 10, 10, and you can see what it's done now is it's made, so that's the shape of our original picture. But what I need to do is just make it a little bit bigger still. Let's go 12. Oh, yep, I'm happy with that now. So again, you can see, if I make that a little bit bigger, that my picture, so you can see this is the size of my picture that I'm moving around. You can see where it shows through the picture box is where it gets brighter. So you can see what I'm going to see through the picture box, like a little window. And I'm going to drop that, I think, about there. And that's how it looks. So actually you can see now, because that brown key line has stayed there, you can see that my blue box where the picture is, that's the picture box, like a window that shows us what the picture is. The actual whole picture is that brown key line there. So there's more picture outside of it, but I'm not bothered about that. I don't need to see that bit of it. I just want to see what's there in that square. Okay. So I'm happy with that now. So again, back on my top arrow, click on the page, and let's have a look at it in full. So there's the spread. So I've now got a spread with 2 images on. they meet the guides, so they run to the guides. That one goes on that guide, and then here these to this guide. They start at the top, so they're starting to fit with the grid because I've made sure that they do fit. And 2 pictures that I found. So now what I'm going to do at this stage, this is another important thing. Really, this applies to whatever application you're using, if it's InDesign or Photoshop or Illustrator. I'm going to save it. File. Always try and go to Save As. If you go to Save, it will immediately replace the last version that you have, which might be fine, because it might be all you're doing is updating. So you're just going to save and save, save. It might be, however, that you have done something and you want to kind of save it as a different name because you might want the original version still for another reason. Like it might be that you're trying a different layout and you want to save it just to try a different layout. So in this instance, I might want to call this. So if we go to Save As, it brings up the name of what you had. So I'm going to call this, I'm just going to add a 2 at the end of it. So iMagazine template spread 2. It's going in my trees folder. Always check whenever you save a piece of work, it's important to look at this where it's going. Sometimes I've done this as well. If you've had another folder open while you've been working on something and you press save and you don't look where it's gone, when you go back and look in your folder, you think it's gone in a folder that you've had. And there is a way of finding it, but it's a bit of a pain. So if you check it, yes, it's going in my trees folder. I'm happy with that. Save. And then if we just look in my trees folder now, you can see I've now got template spread and I've now got my spread 2, which is what this is. So that's there. I've saved that now. So I know whatever happens now, if the Mac crashes, if we have a power cut, whatever, it's safe on my folder. So now we need to bring some words in. This is about words and pictures. And like I say, words for what you're doing, you're getting from websites about the designers that you're doing. So you haven't got to write your own words. You can copy and paste the words from that. So if I was doing this on trees, let's go back onto our friend Google. And we don't need images anymore. I need to look at information about trees. So I'm going to type trees into Google. All right, let's go Wikipedia. Always full of all the information we ever need. And I'm just going to copy this first paragraph here. Okay. Make sure you get all the words in. So let me get it. Okay. So again, some commands are kind of consistent throughout. So file, edit, copy, or you can do Command C. Obviously copy as well if you know your keyboard commands. Now, what I'm going to do I should have done actually first, yes. So it's starting with my InDesign file. We need to make somewhere for that copy to go in. So in the same way that we made a picture box for our pictures to go in, we need to make a text box for our text to go in because they're different boxes. And again, so we look at down the side, and what we need to look at is our T. Again, across all of Adobe's applications, T means type. So whenever you see a T, it's something to do with type. And you can see there it says, when you go over it, type tool. So I'm clicking on that. And what this lets me do is draw another box. I'm going to have this box about this wide. I'll let go. And you can see that this time, there's a little flashing cursor. You see that little flashing black line there that's waiting for that text because it knows it's a text box. It's waiting for the text to come in. You can't put text in a picture box. And likewise, you can't put a picture in a text box. So there's specific boxes that know what they want to put in them. So what I'm going to do now, like I say, go back to Wikipedia, highlight the text without clicking on the link all the while like I'm doing. And I've got there. Again, you can do your copy your keyboard command, or you can just go edit, copy, click back on InDesign. So this is where you don't need to save this text. It's like you're saying about the photographs, Dorothy. This is where you can copy something directly from Google if you want. You can save the website you're on. You can save a link to that, so write it down so you can revisit it. But with copy, you can just copy that straight into InDesign. So that's what I'm doing now. It's waiting for it there, and then we go edit, paste. And you can see what it's done. It's copied the text we got from here about trees, and it's put it in this text box. And again, like with the picture box, if we go on our top arrow, our selection arrow, we can see this box again. It's got its little white squares. We can click on this and we can move it around. So again, if we have it tall and thin, obviously the copy runs down almost to the bottom of the page. If we have the box wider, the copy moves accordingly. So think about the copy as being like water within a bag. As you squeeze the bag, the water changes its shape. It's the same with this. As I move this text box, the type within it obviously moves accordingly. If I had a very, very, very wide text box, so I could, again, you can see the way I'm just gripping this and moving it. You can see if I had one, and you wouldn't really do this because it'd be very hard to read. If I had my text box running all the way across the double page spread, it would actually only make 3 lines of type because that's all the type there is. So I think I'm going to have it back where I had it. So again, I'm under my top arrow, my selection tool when I'm doing this. So I'm going to bring it, and I think I'm going to have it lining up there, and I'm going to have it going to there, and I can bring that up a little bit there. It doesn't really matter. So that I think fits quite nicely in there. So that's my text, and that's my images. Now, obviously at the moment that's just kind of dropped in. There's no kind of, that's not design really. That's more kind of building. That's putting things together. That doesn't look very exciting. If you were to open a magazine and see that, you might like the picture, but you kind of wouldn't go, that's an amazing piece of layout, because it isn't. It's just blocks. So this is where then your skill comes in that you'll want you to make these look exciting, want you to make these spreads. Victoria?
Ultimately, do you think the heading
We could have the heading there. We could also, and I might do this now, have a heading at the top, because I hadn't considered the heading at all. So what I think I'm going to do, and this is again what's nice about InDesign, I can just move things around. So I think what I'm going to do now, I'm going to give myself a heading. So again, back on my top arrow, my selection tool, and I'm moving, and this is quite nice. You see how I can just move all of these things that I've made around. So one example I said last week is think about these as almost being pieces of paper on a table. That's what InDesign is. InDesign, the background is the table, and all of these are pieces of paper. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to move this bit down to there. I'm going to actually move this down to here so it lines up with the top of there. I'm going to put my copy in there, and that gives me room here to have a title. And again, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to type in my title. So you don't only have to copy text and paste it in, you can type your own text in. So again, on my type tool, and then I'm going to draw a type box, and this type box I am going to have it like Victoria mentioned, about going all the way over both pages, and I'm going to type into this trees are very nice. What a lovely bit of copywriting that is. So trees are very nice, and I want this, obviously if that's a heading, what does it need to be? Can you read that at the minute? No, because it's far too small. Headings need to be bigger, don't they, to stand out? So I highlight it. This is the other things that we can look at. Again, as you slowly get used to InDesign, you'll notice where little bits are. So when it comes to editing type, one key thing to remember is you need to highlight it. You need to tell InDesign, because it's inherently, it doesn't know what it's doing. It's only doing what you're telling it to do. So it doesn't know headlines need to be big, because it doesn't know that's a headline, because it doesn't know what a headline is. So we know it needs to be big. So we highlight, and the way we highlight then, so it's back on this type tool, and instead of drawing a box, we're just going to click and drag it over the type. So I've highlighted all that type, and I'm now up to this bit here. And again, there's 2 places here. Again, that thing of you can do things in more than one way. In this control panel at the top, it tells us that that type is 12 points in size. If you remember, type we measure in points. It's not centimeters, it's not millimeters, it's not inches, it's points. The bigger the number of points, the bigger the type. This information is also over here on the right-hand side. So again, depending on what information you've got open, you can always find out what it is, and it's just what you're used to using. So I want that to be bigger. So again, as with all things, there's a little drop down arrow there that takes us up to 72, but we can go bigger than that. We can type our own numbers in. Let's go 72 first. So you can see that's gone nice and big. But I want it to be a bit bigger than that. So I'm going to now, in where it says 72 here, click on it. Again, highlight that. I'm going to put 100 in there. Press return, and it'll do that. I think I'm actually going to go a bit bigger still. Let's try. This is the thing, you know, there's no right or wrong. Just keep trying until things don't work. What might happen, I'll show you what happens now if you go too big for the text box. If I go 130, I'm not still doing it. If I go 150, there. You think, ah, it's gone. What have I done? Because it's basically it's too big. So because if you think our text box is only this big, it's too big. So we haven't deleted the text. The reason we know it's still there is because there's a little, see this little red square over here. That shows us that the type's there. It's just too big for the text box. It can't fit in. So what we're going to do is make that back to 130 again, and there it is, and it appears. And I think we'll play safe and we'll keep it that big, right? So that's my text. That's my text. That's my title, right? I'm not very happy with that typeface though. I don't think it's particularly exciting, and also I think I might want it in capitals. I think because again you can see what's happening here because I've used this word very. It's got a Y. This is called a descender. So the bit that hangs down is kind of getting in the way a bit with the picture. It doesn't look neat. So I'm going to make that all capitals again. Back on my type tool, highlight it all just by dragging across it. And then there's various little tools here. So these, again, you'll get to know them all. These little two T's together, these are capital. So click on that and it makes things capital. Click off it, you know, or you can go different kinds of styles we can have. So they're big caps and little caps. Back to upper lowercase. Let's stick with capitals. You can see what's happened now. Because I've made it capitals, and capitals are bigger letters, there's not enough room in our text box. And we know it's cut off because, again, we've got this little red square here. So I need to now make this a little bit smaller. So, again, highlight it. And instead of 130, I'll go 125. Nope, need to go a little bit smaller still. 120. There it is. It's come back in there. Okay. So trees are very nice. I'm also going to look at changing the typeface. So you can see there's two ways of highlighting again because there's more than one way of doing everything. So there's the way I showed you where you click with the type tool and drag, and you can kind of highlight the text that way. Another way is just by going Command A. So Command A, and it selects all the text automatically. But again, there are keyboard commands for most things. Doesn't really matter whether you use the keyboard command or you use it in the longer way. It's whatever you're used to doing. So this typeface, so again, our typeface information is up here, and it's also here. So this is in a typeface called Minion Pro. So let's just change that now. And again, like Mo did on Thursday, whenever you look at typefaces, you get this nice little menu, this little drop-down menu here that tells you the name of the typeface and shows you what it looks like on the right-hand side. If you were to change it, you can see that different typefaces, because they're different widths and the different sizes, make the lines like that. For instance, if we go on that one, this is such a wide typeface. We can only actually, if we use that typeface, we have to make it a lot smaller because it's so wide. We can only actually get the word trees in there. Yet if I use this typeface, we can get it all in there because again, that's quite a narrow typeface, isn't it? So again, depending on what typeface you use, that will affect what size it is. So it's no good saying what size should I do this if you haven't chosen your typeface. So you pick your typeface, then you choose your size. I think I'm going to go with one. Let's go that one. So this is called Impact. Click on that, and now it's saved it like that. Now, so I'm going to have that there. What I am going to do, I've just noticed I could do something that's quite interesting. So that's my headline there. So back on my selection arrow, I'm just going to make sure that's in place. That's moved, that snaps nicely. I've noticed that that runs to here. I can actually now move this tree picture up here to fit nicely there. Because my headline stops just at kind of the edge of the big picture, I can move the little picture up there. So again, that way we say it's kind of building with blocks, moving shapes around. So I'm going to do that. I think that works all right. We've got a headline. This is my copy here. And again, I'm just going to leave that there for now. I think I'm going to change the typeface that is as well. So again, highlight that all. I'm going to make this that one, I think, Helvetica New. Click on that. And I'm going to just edit some of the text. I'm going to look at it, and because again, zooming in, there's a magnifying glass tool. Is one of your tools down the side. Click on that. You can imagine what that does. That lets you zoom. So once you're on that one, you can just simply click on it, and it will just take you in and in and in and in and in as far as you want to go in. And then to come out again, you can click on Command minus, and that again, that takes you out. So with this, what I'm going to do here is, because I don't want some of these words to have this, what it's done automatically, it's split the words. So it's hyphenated the words, it's broken the words, and I don't want that to happen because it looks a bit ugly. So I'm just simply going to return, put a return in those. There is an automatic hyphenation thing you can click on that will do it for you. But I'm just going to go through returning any words that are split like that. There. And that's my text. So again, looking at the whole page. That's what that looks like there. And now the last thing to do, I've got a little bit of a gap here, haven't I? So what I might do, I'm thinking I might like to have a little illustration in there now. I want to bring something in there that does something. So I'm going to go now on, first of all, I'm going to save it, file, save as. I'm happy to keep it still spread to. So it's still going in my trees folder. Save that. And it's asking me, do I want it, because I've kept the name the same, it's asking if I want to replace it. It's just checking. I say, yes, I do. I'm fine with that. So it's now saved it. Back on Google, I want to find a little illustration of a tree, because I've got 2 photographs already. So I'm going to look for, so I'll go back onto Google. I'm going to type in tree illustration. Go on. Look. I just want something that fit in that gap. Might have this maybe here. These branches. So again, drag that onto the desktop. Let me this. And I'll call that tree illustration. That goes in my folder. Now we'll make, so getting the box with the cross in is the picture box. Draw that here. I'm going to drag from my folder the tree illustration, if it'll let me do it, into there. It won't do it because it's not the right file type. So what I need to do first is to get a file of the correct type. Let's go back. Let's try this one here, this illustration here. That's better. That's a JPEG, so that'll work. So we'll call this one tree drawing. my folder. And now back in InDesign, drag a tree drawing into this box. And we can see it's a little bit big, so we need to reduce the size of it. Get down to, it's currently 30, says it's 33%, so I'm going to go 10 to 10. That's now make it a little bit bigger, I think. I'll make it 20, yeah. Again, what's nice is that this little tool here, you can see the way, so in doing this spread, I've kind of touched on little tools. That's the way that you pick them up. So there's a little tool here, and again, which is called the center content tool, which is a box within a box. You click on that, and it automatically puts your picture in the middle of your picture box, whatever it is. Now it's a little bit big though, so I'm going to make it 15. And now I'm happy with that. That will fit nicely there. Just going to click on this. What I'm going to do is just make sure that picture lines up there, that lines up there. I'm going to move it up a little bit because at the moment I want you can see the bottom of the tree trunk is just below this bottom blue line. So again, just selected it, and now with the arrow keys on the keyboard, just moving it up about there. And that, I think, is all working okay. Again, one final save. File, save as, save it as that. Yes, I'll replace it. And who can remember what the command was to hide all your guides and things that don't print? There was a letter on the keyboard that Mo said you press, W. So that's what it looks like in InDesign. If we were to print this out, obviously none of these guides print out. And by pressing W, you can see what it would look like. There. So that's what it would look like if we were to print that out. The guides are still there, just press W again. So they're still there, but that just shows you what it would look like. So now we can see if this was actually a page in a magazine. There's our first page, there's our second page, there's our title, there's our images, there's our illustrations. You can see the way it all fits. So even though, when we look at the grid, if I put W, there's lines again, even though there's all these blue lines here, and we haven't used any of these, have we? All I've done is I've used this line, and I've used this line, and I've used this line here for where these line up, and I've used this edge line, and I've used the top. I haven't used any of these at all. This still, when we get rid of all that, is fitting on that grid. So this is still using that grid. You don't need to use every single line. So even though this is a 4-column grid, and there are 4 columns on it, I haven't used those 4 columns. I've made them either effectively. This picture, if we count, this picture is actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is 6 columns wide. This picture here is 2 columns wide. This text is 2 columns wide, and obviously that at the bottom fits in that gap that's 2 columns wide. So, and you can do that with yours. So again, it might be that you do want to have 2 columns of text and then a big picture. It might be you want to have 4 columns of small text and a big picture at the top, or 4 little pictures and big text. It's entirely up to you how you break up that space. But whatever you do, you're always using that grid like we've done here. So that's how to build a spread in InDesign, and hopefully that's gone through it again in a little bit more detail. And again, what we'll do, Mo will go through this again on Thursday. He'll touch on other bits. And bit by bit, the most important thing you can do is just to have a play with it yourself. Just open up an InDesign document, bring in pictures, bring in text, and have a play with it.
Yeah, it's like you have to remember from how getting your middle with this thing for purple.
Mm-hmm.
You already know your middle. But here, what if you want to do the works to be in a line like this? How do you get the middle of it?
So the middle of, you mean the middle of which?
Yeah, that is here. You've already gotten the middle.
Yeah.
What's up?
Oh, you mean a horizontal, right? Yeah. So horizontally, you can bring your own guidelines in. So you see these two rulers. So there's a black, this black little ruler at the side here, and the black ruler on the top. So at any point, you can click on here and bring in your own guide. So you see this blue line that's moving down as I'm doing it, and you can bring that down there. So then you can start to bring in horizontal ones as well. So say for instance, I wanted to have, what I'll do now, I'm going to move, let's move this picture across. So I'm going to move that to there. I'm going to copy. So simply copy this text. So say I want this text to line up to make sure it's the same height. So again, I can bring a guide in. So I click on this rule at the top and you see it brings this guide in. So let's say I leave that there, and then it means that I can make sure that that meets that and that meets that. And then I know those are perfectly same length because they're on the same line like that. So you can bring in your own guides as well if you want to make sure it's half and half and that things line up. Yeah, but this all comes with practice. And I've just done that there because I know where it is. So it's about you practicing and trying things out. But it's and like any application, it's all about practice and trying and seeing how things work. So what I'll do now, I'll
Yes.
stop that record.